Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by another lifetime Longhorn, the young prodigy CJ Vogel, and also joined by my good friend, esteemed colleague Jeff Howe. Gentlemen, we are together here to talk about some, I guess you could call it breaking news, but it is being reported on Texas Football that Texas and Arizona State are in the process of mutually agreeing to cancel their 2032-23 series in the upcoming future on the football schedule. And, the reasons have not necessarily been given, but there's all types of speculation all across college football that a lot of folks, in response to the college football playoff, are canceling a lot of, or at least looking to reevaluate a lot of their early non-conference scheduling to try to make sure that they are give themselves the best position to get double-digit wins so they can have a chance to make the college football playoff. Jeff, I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts about this series being canceled, or at least in the process of being canceled?
I think until we know what the playoff is going to look like, how it's going to expand, how many teams, and what impact non-conference schedules are going to have on it, and the impact, quite frankly, of going to a 9-game SEC schedule. What's the future conference championship games? There's so much unknown that I just think clearing the deck as much as possible is a good thing for everybody at this point. Don't back yourself into a corner. Don't tie yourself to anything. I think the other thing too, Rod, that's interesting is depending on whichever way the playoff format goes, if you're CDC, you got to give fans – now you're going to get plenty of value for your season tickets based on the SEC schedule.
Yep.
At least you should. Because from a rivalry standpoint, every other year it'll start changing now, but every other year you'll get Arkansas at home, and then the following year you'll get A&M at home. So now they're going to start alternating. So you'll have that part of it, and then we'll see whatever else the conference schedule is. But I think in this day and age where you're trying to maximize revenue, TV is obviously going to be a big part of that. I think you got to give fans something that they can really sink their teeth into. Now, if you can go schedule the big blockbuster non-conference game, you go do that. And Arizona State, well, with all due respect to that program, doesn't really fit into that. It's not an Ohio State. It's not a Michigan. It's not a Notre Dame. And quite honestly, if you're going to go to the Big 12, play one of your old Big 12 foes. Hey, maybe you schedule a one-off with a TCU or a one-off with Baylor or a one-off with Texas Tech, whoever it is. I don't know what that looks like, CJ, but that's kind of where I am. I think it's twofold. Giving yourself enough wiggle room to evaluate the landscape, if you will, of whatever the playoff is, then making sure you're giving your fans the most bang for their buck on their season tickets.
I was going to go a very similar route with this, and I've kind of taken the stance that nothing should be scheduled from 2030 on. Not yet, right? And what I mean by that is the TV contracts for both for the Big Ten expires in 2029, 2030. So when we start talking about the future of realignment once again, because we're going to hear about, the dreaded realignment word once more in a couple of years, when schools from the Big 12 start to separate themselves and they look at themselves like, hey, they should be a part of this conversation. We've already seen this with Florida State, Miami, Duke, a lot of these schools in the ACC have already had litigious battles to get out of the ACC. Now, does that happen once again when the Big Ten ultimately comes back up for its TV negotiation? And let's be honest, once again, the Big Ten and their schools, their 18 schools, make significantly more money on a per-year basis than the 16 schools in the SEC. There's almost a $450 million difference in a per-year basis distributed amongst those teams. Now, when that contract is negotiated once again, that's when I think more dominoes will fall in terms of, do we eventually see a Power 2? If we see a Power 2 conference schedule or anything like that, the landscape of college football will flip on its head. I don't think for any reason Texas should be locked into any games before knowing what the future of the sport will look like. And I think that's why, to put it into the words of Bobby Burton's reporting today, Texas leaves itself some wiggle room for what's to come in college football as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, CJ, about, how the networks and the television contracts play a huge role in, how the landscape of college football ends up looking in the future. And also, Jeff, I think you made a great point as well. You started talking about, these non-conference. It almost feels like it could just be a relic of some those big time blockbuster blue blood non-conference matches, because now you are in the SEC, which mandates not only 9 conference games, mandates now 10 Power 4 teams on everybody's schedule in the SEC. And the SEC now, what you didn't have in the Big 12, you didn't have a lot of blue bloods, right?
Yeah.
You only had 2. Now you got a few more blue bloods that are going to end up coming back automatically in conference scheduling at one point, that are going to come to Austin and play. And you can obviously go on those road trips as well. That means a lot for the boosters. I know one of those reasons for those big non-conference games was, hey, man, we got to give the big boosters somewhere to go, because ain't a lot of sexy places in the Big 12, but a lot of sexy locations in the SEC as well for the big-time boosters and the donors who want to go on those road trips. And obviously, in return, have those fans come to Texas and come to Austin. So I do think it's possible. And listen, it's the playoff now, expanded playoff. Mm-hmm. And if it expands again, it does also make the conversation, I don't say moot, because it is great for the fans to get those great blockbuster non-conference matchups, but you'd like to get them on the back end. And if you can give yourself a better chance to get them on the back end in a college football playoff game of some sort, that's where you would ultimately like it. So I do feel like, I don't know if they're going away ultimately, but Texas is definitely, like you said, giving themselves some wiggle room to see what the landscape looks like in the future. If they expand the playoff, which seems inevitable at one point, right? In some way, form, or fashion. Do you get that? Do you get that big non-conference sexy blue blood matchup back, CJ?
I mean, you would think so, right?
You got more margin for error in that case, right? Obviously, right now, you don't have margin for error, especially with the way the SEC schedule lays out. If they expand the playoffs, now the Big Ten wants, 24 teams? Was that their proposal, something like that? If it gets to that, then you definitely could bring it back, because you got a lot of margin for error there. Yeah. But, if they expand to 16 or whatever, but still, I think ultimately for Texas, I think the decision, even though it's not the decision a lot of fans are going to agree with, because a lot of fans want that matchup. It is the right decision if you are going to hinder your opportunity to play in the postseason by having that big non-conference game, and you don't get rewarded for it by the committee.
Right. Yeah. I think the non-conference scheduling philosophy is going to, like a lot of things in college football, we'll see the off-season structure change. Mm-hmm. I just think it doesn't do anybody any good to schedule non-conference games so far out, where you're scheduling them 6-7 years out, because, man, unless you're talking about scheduling an Ohio State, a Michigan, a Notre Dame, who knows what you're going to be facing? And like that's not a new problem. Rod, a great example, your last 2 years at Texas had a home and home with North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, when that game was scheduled, North Carolina was a much different program than the one that you guys ended up playing in 2001 and 2002. Yeah. So this is not a new problem, but I think even now with, the roster volatility in college football, one of the programs that I thought, hey, me personally, because that game means something to me based on my formative years of watching college football, I would like to see Texas schedule Nebraska for a non-conference home and home, but get that thing going again. But Nebraska hasn't held up its end of the deal for a long time, and who's to say they're going to? So what does it benefit you at Texas? Texas has never played Florida State in football. I would love to see Texas play Florida State, but it seems like either they're competing for a national championship or Mike Norvell's about to get fired. So there's so much volatility there. So I think you have to maybe try to get it, Rod, to where you're scheduling these games like maybe 24, 36 months out instead of 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. And I feel like what Texas had the idea that you're talking about, though, because it was Michigan and Ohio State and Notre Dame's. I mean, they were thinking, all right, you know what? Let's play a program that has as much to lose as we do. All right, let's not play, because Arizona State didn't fit that, to your point initially, Jeff. Like, it's like, whoa, one of these things is not like the other. What Arizona State come from? Because at that point, that whenever you get that win against Arizona State, I don't know if you benefit that much from it. But a loss to Arizona State early in the season, I mean, that could be disastrous for your program. They're not a program that, like you said, Jeff, year in and year out, I know what to expect. At least I got a general idea of what to expect. In some programs, you just don't.
I almost wish the decision-making and negotiations of this was taken out of it. And if we ever do get a Power 2 or Power 3 conference across all of college football, I almost wish it, and I hate to just sound like just copy the NFL model, but if you would align an equal amount of teams across multiple conferences and get kind of like what we see in college basketball with the ACC and a Big 12 challenge or the SEC Big 10 challenge, something like that, where it's based off of either the incoming season's FPI or how you ranked the year before, that would be enough turnover year after year to where you're not just playing the same team every single season. But on top of that, it's in a way weighted that's equal to what the expectation is for each team coming into a season or how they placed the year previously. Now, again, I kind of just thought of this on a whim. I don't know if this is something that is even feasible in college football, right? It is TV money out the you know what when it comes to how quickly and far along they schedule these things. But you're always going to have the argument of, well, Team A played a team that's pretty bad. Meanwhile, Team B went through a gauntlet and Team C played someone that's barely bowl eligible. Well, how do you figure out to base those three teams when they have to play another 9-game Power 4 schedule based off of that? So I don't know. I wish almost the decision-making was taken completely out of it. And I just don't know if that would ever be a possibility that we see in college football.
I think one, and we're just spitballing here, but a lot of college football purists, and I'll throw myself in this group too. You like to maintain some structure of the bowl system. I think CJ would, based on what you're saying, one way I would do that, Rod, I would almost treat it like some NFL teams treat a preseason game where you match up a couple teams, let them go to a neutral site. Like, hey, what if Texas, instead of Texas and Ohio State playing in the regular season this year, what if that's your ReliaQuest Bowl matchup and they just go to Tampa for a week and have on-site practices, and then you play an exhibition game that doesn't count against your record and play it however you want. Hey, you want your starters to play half? Let them play half. You want to play the whole game? Play in the whole game and use basically so the bowls are getting something out of it because people will go watch that game, and the teams, it's not a completely no-lose situation, but it doesn't have it doesn't have that empty feeling that the bowl game sometimes does. So there's the bottom line is, CJ's point about conferences maybe getting bigger. We could just be getting to the point, Rod, where eventually, if you're the SEC, you may just say, hey, it's an 11-game conference schedule. You get one cupcake kind of as a tune-up game, and then it's 11 SEC games to end the regular season.
Yeah. Because at this point, it's the cupcakes seem unnecessary. I hate to even disrespect them like that. I'm saying I say non-Power 4, the non-Power 4 games. They seem unnecessary at this point. But no, good stuff. And all those are great ideas. And honestly, they should be looked into, and there should be due diligence looking at all the creative solutions for college football right now. But unfortunately, there's not one voice. There's not a really clear leadership in college football, so probably won't happen anytime soon. Until
further notice, Rod, I'll pull a Longhorn Blitz turn. We're on the Argo principle with college football right now. Yeah, there is no what's the best bad idea you've got.
Pretty much. Yeah. There's no good ideas floating around, but the sport's more popular than it's ever been. So you can't stop the passion people have for college football, no matter how stupid the leadership is. All right. Good stuff, gentlemen. Thank you, CJ. Appreciate you. Thank you, Jeff, as well. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. And for Jeff and for Matthew and for CJ, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.
Okay.